Bet Online as the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for betting on all the madness, Ty.
Even if your bracket is busted. Now, mine isn't quite busted yet. I have Houston winning it all. They're still in. Hopefully they win it all on my bracket's sake. But yeah, Bet Online has more ways to stay in on all the action with the free Sweet 16 bracket and live betting on every remaining tournament game. I just want Duke to lose. I'm a Duke hater, and I want Houston to win it all.
There you go, guys. There you go. Of course, they've got the largest selection of odds on everything: college basketball, MLB, NHL, MMA. Guess what, too? You know what? You can even make a bet on who you think could be first overall in the NFL draft. Get in on the action from every Cinderella story to every hat trick. BetOnline has got you covered with odds, stats, and more for every game, every play, every dub. BetOnline, the game starts here. All right, let's get to our episode with the LA Times' Sam Farmer. Welcome to Bleav in Rams, part of the Bleav Network. Erin Coscarelli and my co-host, Tyler Dragon of USA Today, back with you. Be sure to do all the things, guys. Subscribe, comment, rate, follow this podcast. You can catch us on Bleav TV. Follow us on all the socials. We've got a lot to get to, and we are so excited to have Sam Farmer join us, okay? We're going to talk all things LA. There's so much to talk about. There's so much to dive into. Sam Farmer's been covering the NFL for well over 25 years. You work for the LA Times. You have your finger on the pulse, all things sports. And we're really grateful because we know you're a busy man. Even though it's the off season, there's still so much to talk about. I want to talk to you about Sean McVay's future, Matthew Stafford, and that whole debacle. You wrote a really cool article about Cooper Kupp and what he means to LA. We both kind of grew up in the same neighborhood as well, which is very cool. Sam, thank you again for making the time to join us this morning. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Erin. That was a very kind introduction. And as you can see by the gray hair, I have been around a while. I started in covering the Raiders back in 95, and I did Raiders 95 to 2000, then came to the LA Times. I was at the News in San Jose. So it's been a while. Yeah.
I mean, you're a legend. You are a legend, and a lot of things you talk about for the legendary LA Times. And before we get into the Rams, I do need to get your take. Ty, I don't know if you've been fascinated by the whole story. This whole LeBron James fighting with Stephen A. Smith. I know I had to go there because what? I mean, obviously the Lakers, we're in LA. What do you make of this whole debacle that's happening with like a media member and an actual player? Do you agree? Whose team are you on?
Yeah, it's so bizarre the way the media has changed and the interactions and social media, how it's changed everything, and these reporters who have been elevated to this celebrity status and the money. It's staggering when you hear about a Stephen A. Smith's contract. I'm so focused on the NFL that I sort of only pick up the I don't know that I'd be able to give you a totally informed opinion on the back and forth there, but just this, I'd be interested to hear what you had to say about that, and I could sort of weigh in.
So let me preface this by saying I know Stephen A. I've gone out to dinner with him multiple times, talked to him. I've met LeBron. I don't know him as well. I am team LeBron because it's personal to him because his family is involved and he's trying to defend his son. He knows what's out there. Bronny James has been criticized from high school, saying he wasn't good enough to be a McDonald's All-American, wasn't good enough to go to USC, obviously wasn't good enough to be drafted, wasn't good enough to be in the NBA. So he's defending his son like any father, parent would do. So I get that. And Stephen A., from personal experience, he has never been fond of LeBron. Now, he has never told me this, but I think it's because LeBron has never given him access. Mm-hmm. Like you look at Stephen A., all the stars. He's close with Michael Jordan. Obviously built his career close with Allen Iverson, close with Kobe Bryant. close with Stephon Marbury. The list goes on. He's never had that relationship with LeBron. Never. LeBron won't give him access. So he's always kind of slighted LeBron in that way. He's never gone on First Take, never been on Stephen A. Smith's show. So in that aspect, he'll never give LeBron maybe his due credit. Now, he says LeBron's the second greatest player of all time. I personally agree with him. It's not a slight to be the second best player of all time. LeBron thinks he's the GOAT. That's fine. He has his right to feel that way. But it's become personal with both of them. But when you talk about somebody's son and saying, well, he's a bad father because he's put his son in that position, that's the way LeBron feels. And so that's why he stepped up to him, in the middle of crypto.com arena. Now, I don't agree with that either. Maybe he should have sent smoke signals to his agent, Rich Paul, which he does often anyways. So he maybe should have handled it more privately. I get that. But now I think Stephen A. needs to let it go. The whole 20-minute dialogue that he had on First Take, that.
I saw that.
It was extreme. It was too much. And that was on the backdrop of having a podcast, a 45-minute podcast strictly on LeBron.
Okay.
There was so much to talk about yesterday, but it was all Stephen A. and LeBron. It was opening day of baseball.
Yeah.
So many NBA teams are on winning streaks. I mean, it's unfortunate, but I think
that's fascinating background. That's
see how Tyler gets so, it's interesting, Sam, because to piggyback off your point, I'm always just fascinated more by the psychology and the trends that we see. And absolutely, you're right. You've been in this business for a really long time. The fact that a player is getting into sort of a verbal skirmish with an on-camera media member who isn't backing down, and even made a comment during, like you said, Ty, saying, I'm going to be here at ESPN long before you're, before you are. So it's funny, these verbal jabs as a media member. And even LeBron said, he's going to love that I'm talking about him right now. And it's just, it's great entertainment, I guess. So
I guess, and that's what it is. That was fascinating, that rundown and all the background of what I should pay a little more attention to that.
No, trust me. Soap opera is not worth it.
No, you shouldn't.
I wish I didn't pay much attention to it, but it's just in front of my face.
No, I know. Yeah. All right. Well, we'll let you off the hook there. I just thought that was really, really funny. Let's get to actual NFL news and notes. One of the things I want to talk to you about too, the whole Aaron Rodgers debacle in a moment as well. But let's take this to Los Angeles, and before we get to Cooper Kupp, what did you make of what the Rams are doing, and how can we, as, let's say, Rams fans, understand what they're doing in terms of keeping Stafford? They're doing sort of always every year we come to this sort of weird place right after the season. Is Stafford going to stay? Is he happy with what he's getting paid? And are we going to do this every single year under Stafford? And is it smart for the Rams to be doing this? Whose side are we on here? Yeah,
I mean, I think Matthew Stafford played like a top 10 quarterback last year. Still, I think he is set apart from the field. He's in an elite group of quarterbacks, and I think you see what happens when a franchise doesn't have a quarterback. You look at Pittsburgh right now, or the Jets, or these sort of franchises that are consistently searching the desert for a quarterback, and Matthew Stafford's an elite player still at his age, and we've seen quarterbacks play deeper and deeper into their 30s. And if they can protect him, I think they can win with him. I mean, we were at that game in Philadelphia, and we saw that came right down to the wire with the Eagles, where the Rams could have won that. I sort of trust what the decisions that Sean and Les Snead have made. If you go over Les Snead over the last 7 or 8 years and look at the players he's drafted, the methods that they've used in terms of trading away picks, and making that monumental trade, the Goff for Stafford swap. You can see that they've been very effective in what they've done. The Cooper Kupp, you could kind of see the writing on the wall that as his role diminished, maybe they felt like he couldn't achieve the separation that he once could. Obviously, Cooper doesn't feel that. He feels like he's got at least 4 good years left. Going out and getting Davante Adams. Davante Adams was terrific with the Jets last year. If you look at what he did at age 31, 32, where he had a seismic impact on the Jets from the start. I think they lost to Pittsburgh, and he gave like a post-game talk in the locker room. I think he'd been there a week or something, and he commands that kind of respect. You look at just kind of looking at Davante Adams and that move. When the Jets played the Patriots the first time, they put Christian Gonzalez on Garrett Wilson, and they put their best. All the focus was on Garrett Wilson. Immediately when Davante Adams came, the focus shifted to Davante Adams. Now, obviously having Aaron Rodgers there, forcing the ball to him in a lot of situations, dictated that. But so that obviously that's going to be the most scrutinized move for the Rams this year, bringing in Davante Adams and getting rid of Cooper Kupp. But I think they've done a good job, and the results have proved that out.
It's interesting you say that. Erin and I talked about that move, and I've always thought Davante Adams was better than Cooper Kupp. Now, I know Cooper Kupp, 3rd most receiving touchdowns, yards in Rams history. But when you look at their careers, Davante Adams has always been the more superior receiver. And at this point, although Davante's a year older, he's aged better than Kupp, because Kupp has had all those injuries to his lower extremities, and it's kind of taken a toll on him. So I can see why the Rams decided to move on from him, albeit a tough decision, and go with a Davante Adams who's 1 year older, but still has more in the tank, in my opinion.
And Cooper Kupp came into the league at 24, so he hasn't had as many NFL seasons under his belt, but you're right. He's had injuries. He's been injured pretty consistently since 2021. Very effective, smart receiver, but I can see your point on Davante Adams. He also had a great quarterback who, for a lot of that, who sort of made him the centerpiece of that offense. But I think Cooper Kupp still has some gas in the tank. I think he'll be effective in Seattle, but it'll be very interesting to see how they use Davante Adams assuming he stays healthy, and he's obviously Puka Nacua is going to be the focus of that. But if he does what they think he can do, I think it will really help them.
What move do you like most, and what move so far do you like least that the Rams have made this offseason?
There personally, I think just getting rid of Cooper Kupp, now that we've talked about that and said that was there could be a lot of upside to that. I think getting rid of Cooper Kupp, I personally don't like that. I think he's been sort of the he's been the heart of that team to some degree. And in
what way?
Well, I think he's been a team leader. I think he's, you look at sort of epitomized the, he's a 3rd round pick. What Les Snead has done in building that team with lower round draft picks. Puka Nacua was a 5th round pick. I think, the toughness he's shown. He's a great route runner. He's exceeded his sort of physical limitations or made the most of his physical abilities. And I think the connection he's had with Matthew Stafford has been terrific. And, we saw it sort of at the apex the Super Bowl year when they won the Super Bowl. They didn't have him when they lost to New England. I think they could have changed the complexion of that game had they had Cooper Kupp. And also, I think he's been a great representative of the team and the community. And so I don't love that. And I think retaining Stafford is huge. Again, to be able to keep a player of that caliber, an elite quarterback, keeps you relevant. And they went right down to the wire with Philadelphia. So I would say those two moves, although I'm sort of talking out of both sides of my mouth saying that Davante Adams could be a very good situation, but I think getting rid of Kupp, letting Kupp go, and I think sort of the way it ended with Cooper Kupp was kind of a sad ending.
Yes. So. Yeah. And that's, ultimately that was going to be it's a business decision for the Rams, but it's almost interesting if it hurts team morale in a weird way. Because that whole, Stafford like he's on The Bachelor, it must be like he's letting go of like an old love, and then he has to be very happy about Davante, of course, as I'm sure so many people were. It
has a feeling of the Stafford Goff trade, and where it felt like toward the end, Jared Goff had fallen out of favor with Sean McVay. Was definitely, those two were butting heads, and then he was gone, and they brought in Stafford, and you knew Stafford was an excellent quarterback, a former number one pick, and in a bad situation in Detroit, and it also felt like Goff was headed to Siberia, and very, very popular player. Just felt like he was going to sort of wither away in Detroit and be a seat warmer until they got a real quarterback. And we've seen what he's been able to do there. And they both had this incredible, it's so rare that you see both sides of that trade. Both teams could argue that they're really happy with that, how it turned out. And it typically doesn't work that way.
Yeah. I did want to go back to Stafford really quickly because that week where he was flirting with other teams, the Giants, there was all kinds of discussion maybe. That week for you, Sam, what was it like for you? Did you feel like there was a real possibility that Stafford would leave?
I guess it's kind of revisionist history to say that I actually thought in the end that it was a lot of sort of saber rattling, and that ultimately Stafford would stay with the Rams because of the value of a quarterback like that. I suppose there's always a possibility that he'd leave. The guy's made a fortune, $300 million over the course of his career. And it seems to me that for him, it's not about a $5 million here or there. It's where's he going to be able to win? Where's his family? Where's he raising his family? Is his wife happy in the situation? And so my gut kind of told me he was going to stay with the Rams, because you do see these teams that are adrift without a quarterback. And the Rams are going to need to make the kind of moves they need to make, move money around, do what they need to do to retain a guy like this. And now that salaries are up around $50 million, I mean, they're going to have to pay. And you also look at their position in the draft, where they are, and the quarterbacks available in this draft, the quarterbacks available in free agency. Just felt like they're going to find a way to make that work.
Yeah. I wish you would have talked to Erin during free agency, because she was so nervous that Stafford was going to leave. I was the same mindset as you, Sam. I was not worried at all. I did not think Stafford was going to leave. I think it was a lot of smoke. I mean, obviously there was a slim chance, but I mean, like you said, his family loves LA. He likes being out here. He has a relationship with Sean McVay. I mean, Sean McVay has always pretty much said that Stafford, he wants him to be his quarterback. So, and based where the Rams ended last season, like they had the Super Bowl champions on the brink. So why blow it up? Why, if you get rid of Stafford, you pretty much have to start it all the way over unless you took a fly at Aaron Rodgers. So yeah, wasn't really worried at all. Aaron was in panic mode.
we were having episodes every couple of days. Like we were on Stafford watch, and it was terrifying. But one of the things we also disagree on, and you made a good point, Sam, is the quarterback talent pool this year compared to next year. Hear me out, guys. Okay. I already put Tyler through this, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. They have to draft a quarterback this year. I'm not saying in the first few rounds, but in the later rounds, Sam, don't you think the sense of urgency in finding the heir apparent to learn under Stafford, because they know he's not going to start this year. Stafford next year is going to be 38, and we don't know the playmakers around. Well, is Davante going to, and I think grab a guy now so he can learn under the tutelage of a Stafford and then can start in the next couple of years. But Tyler has been shooting me down saying there's no chance they're going to look at a quarterback in the draft. Where are you at with that?
Well, I think the fact that they did get so far last year and they have needs they need to address. I think they have 8 draft picks. I think there are valuable areas where they can really improve. I think it might be a luxury that they can't afford just to take a flyer on a quarterback who's a late round pick. Maybe you sign somebody as a preferred free agent, an undrafted guy, but I don't know that there's a quarterback out there that you're going to spend a draft pick on unless you're taking somebody one of your 4 or 6th round picks or whatever. Mm-hmm. I feel like they need help at corner. They need a tight end. They need help on the offensive line. You just don't have that many picks to play with. So I would probably think about the free agent market, think about drafts down the road. Maybe you feel like Stafford can take you another couple of years. So I don't know that I would draft a quarterback if I were the Rams. Jackson Dart, maybe he'll fall farther than I think he's going to fall. I don't think he'll fall out of the first round, actually. Mm-hmm. I think Jackson Dart could go to the Jets at 7, somewhere around there, and be the 3rd quarterback off the board. So after that, just talking to guys, they say the draft flattens out quite a bit after the 3rd pick, and the first round flattens out, and it's just preference. So I just don't know this draft is loaded with talent, but
fine.
Hear what you have.
Fine. 1 point for Tyler, 0 for Erin. That's fine. But you're right. I mean, there are a lot of draft needs. And that was one of the things that when I spoke with Tyler before we were going to have you on, we were curious to get your take on what is the biggest priority in terms of draft you think we're going to see for the Rams on day 1, 2, and 3? Or day 1 and 2.
I think if they got one of the 2 type, Warren or Copeland Loveland, if they got one of the 2 top tight ends in this draft, that'd be a great fit for them. I just think those guys are going to be gone unless they trade up. And how much do you really want to give away to trade up for a tight end? I think they could go corner. They re-signed Jackson. That really helps them on the offensive line, but they can always bolster their offensive line. But I think a cornerback where they are, it's a pretty deep corner draft. And, they could get a safety, they could get a corner, they could get a linebacker. But I think I would say corner. At least that's what I'm saying in my mock 2.0 is that they're going to go corner. if they move up, I think I don't know that if a tight end gets past, if the number 2 tight end on the board is there, I don't know if he gets past the Chargers, because I think the Chargers really need a tight end too. So
yeah, cornerback, tight end, offensive line. Those are my biggest needs for the Rams. And yeah, I would be hard pressed to think that the Broncos, the Colts, or the Chargers would pass on all the 2 best tight ends, and Warren and Loveland. All 3 of those teams need tight ends, but the Rams are in a good position to get one of the top maybe 2 or 3 cornerbacks in the draft where they pick. And when you look at the teams who need cornerbacks, especially starting caliber outside cornerbacks, they're not a whole lot at the top of the first round. Maybe you can see a team, the Cowboys maybe, or teams, the Cardinals maybe need a cornerback, but the Rams are in a good position to get one of the top corners in this year's draft in the first round.
Yeah, feels pretty deep on corners. I don't know how good they are, but I know that there are a lot of guys around the same level. It feels like that's going to go into the second round even. Although I don't think the Rams have a second round pick. So
no, because of the Braden Fisk.
Yeah, so they might want to get one when they can in the first. And, whether that's the kid from Notre Dame, whether it's the 4-2 Hairston from Kentucky, or if Will Johnson were to fall that far.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think when we talk about the draft, and obviously it hasn't happened yet, but you look at the rest of the NFC West, it was a weird year last season. The Niners were just so banged up. I mean, obviously the Rams, even at the beginning of the season. Who do you feel like at this stage, and again, preface this knowing we haven't had the draft yet, how do you see the NFC West shaking out? Who is going to be the biggest threat to the Rams potentially this year?
Well, I think the Seahawks will be interesting. And that's a team that sort of consistently does pretty well. And if they can run the ball, I think it'd be that'll be a tough team. The Niners were so decimated on defense. Their line, they've got Nick Bosa and nobody else. They're going to probably draft a defensive lineman, but the Niners defense really seems problematic. So, and then Arizona is always kind of a grab bag, but the Rams almost always have their number. So, and Arizona also has that sort of warning track power where you feel like, oh, they're pretty good, but they can never really get over the hump and finish a season. I would say the Seahawks would be the team that I would be focused on a little bit. And McDonald, what he's doing up there in his second year. But the Rams are in pretty strong position, I feel like, in the division. And that's they feel to me like a much closer team than a lot of people think. And we saw that in the playoffs.
So, yeah, to me, I believe the Rams are the favorites in the NFC West. But I don't believe the 49ers as bad as people think they are. I know they've been – it was a mass exodus in San Francisco. Greenlaw, Hufanga's gun, their defensive line. But their core players pretty much are still there. When you have a Fred Warner at an inside linebacker, you got a Nick Bosa. So if they can get younger around them, John Lynch talked in the combine how they wanted to get younger. And then on offense, yes, you got to figure out Brock Purdy's contract. Debo, you can kind of see it. He might have been toward the ends of his prime. I mean, he had a bad year last year. They got Ayuk coming back. Hopefully he's healthy. And Christian McCaffrey, hopefully he's healthy as long as Trent Williams. So that's a core piece that can still give the Rams trouble. We've seen in recent years the 49ers have had the Rams numbers, so they've been going back and forth. So to me, it's the 49ers still and the Rams at the class of the division.
It's hard to argue.
Even McCaffrey healthy.
That's right.
It's a big
That's right. Yeah. But you mean, one of the things
me of that come fantasy season.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't draft a number one. That's my fantasy advice.
I've made that
Good
before.
fantasy advice. Well, it was interesting too. Even right after the season, Sean McVay said he is going to implement, I don't even know, strategies or whatever to find ways to, and of course, this is always the hope, to prevent the number of injuries that he had, because they had so many injuries. That was something he was going to focus on. I'm actually curious to understand what that actually means, but he made a point of that was going to be something he was going to work towards. Maybe that he thought there were more injuries than necessary, and perhaps he may have been to blame for why some of those injuries popped up earlier in the season.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting. He's been at the leading edge of that a little bit in eliminating the mini camps, the rookie mini camps, the OTAs, not playing starters in the preseason at all because of soft tissue injuries and looking to avoid those. And it sort of in a larger sense, and I've talked to the commissioner about this, is they're working with AWS. The league is working with AWS to get predictive injury information and using AI to determine how these injuries happen, how players best recover. They can, they want to get the league. The ultimate goal is to get to a place where you're predicting an injury before it happens. Say, because of this behavior, this type of injury could happen. So it'll be interesting to see what measures Sean McVay takes, because again, he's been sort of out there as a leader in terms of doing things a little differently. What kind of things he does to try to prevent these injuries or to forecast injuries that might occur. And I mean, it seems like witchcraft. I mean, how can you prevent an injury or foresee an injury? That sometimes these are non-contact injuries that just happen. But maybe they can do something different or use some methods that are, I mean, they have the preeminent surgeon on their staff in Neil Eltraj. They've got the best people in the world working on this. So I'll be interested to see how's that change. And you also remember a few years, it was probably now 10 years ago that the league changed, and you can only have 17 contact practices over the course of the season. And you can, with the new CBA at the time, players stopped hitting. And how does that affect? Does that make you more or less prone to injury? If you're not having that contact during the week and only on Sundays, maybe you're more prone to injuries because of that.
In the interest of time, we want to be respectful of your time. We know you're a busy man, but I have a couple more questions. Sean McVay, more or less than 3 years with the Rams. What's your prediction on his future in LA?
That's probably linked to the quarterback question. If they can solve the quarterback question, because I don't think Sean McVay wants to be in a situation where he doesn't have a quarterback. I feel like 3 years is about what he has left in him before he goes off to TV. We saw he came very close to leaving for TV a few years ago. But I would say I'll put it at slightly more than 3 years as opposed to less. And they transition to a new quarterback and then just see where it goes from there. So, but I don't think he wants to stick around if the quarterback cupboard is bare.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all were like, oh God, if the Rams are terrible this year, Sean McVay may be hitting the eject button as well. But sorry, Ty, go ahead.
No, I agree. But I could also see McVay doing TV for a while and then coming back to the NFL. Could you see that too, Sam?
Yeah, and we've seen that with coaches before. I mean, see it with Sean Payton. really with these
Bill Belichick.
competitive guys, it's just really tough to keep them away.
Mm-hmm.
And Pete Carroll, was out of it and then dying to get back in.
Mm-hmm.
And, I thought Pete Carroll might be a candidate before the Chargers hired Jim Harbaugh.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's back with the Raiders and has a quarterback he likes. And so, yeah, I could see definitely it not being the sort of final chapter if Sean McVay leaves the Rams. I think he's going to, continue coaching in some way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that 3-year mark, it's interesting because it's a few years away. It's not that long, but it's long enough to hopefully add another championship to your resume.
One thing. Oh, I'm sorry, Erin.
No. Well, I was going to go.
We haven't talked about Cooper Kupp in this respect. And it's something I really didn't include in my story when I went out and visited him before the deal came together. But it's an interesting aspect of the player. He's gotten really into writing poetry. That's he wants to, in fact, write a book of poems.
Cooper Kupp writes poetry.
He showed me some. He wouldn't let me put any in, but they're excellent, actually.
Nice.
I mean, it was remarkable. Yeah. One that he showed me, it reads one way, this way, and then you read it backwards and it's got a completely different meaning. And I'll leave it at that. But if you get a chance or if you talk to him, ask him about his poetry. I wanted to include it in the story, and he's kind of like, nah, I want to write a book. But I thought he's super talented.
That's fascinating.
It's always
he reads books. He reads, he read 10 books during the season. He's a he's a deep thinker, and it's a little bit of an aspect of Cooper Kupp that people might not know about.
I love that. I love so much of that because, you these guys, it's like testosterone filled and they're hitting each other. And then there's this really nice creative side or a sensitive side or a more, artistic side that we don't get to be exposed to as much. And I think it lends itself to the audience really appreciating who these people are on and off the field. And when you say he was a core part or the heartbeat, if you will, of the team, those sound like possibly what added value to who he was as a person and his personality. He was sensitive. I've watched some of his interactions with his wife and his podcast, and I've always found how he answers things and responds quite methodical and interesting. And that's what's great about social media is now we're sort of peeling back a layer of these players and their personalities and their families. George Kittle and his wife. It's always I love that. So I will have to.
So it brings us full circle to LeBron and his kid.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Last one for me, to be respectful of your time, Sam. And I'm just curious about Aaron Rodgers. Are you what's going on? Does he not want to play anymore? Have you wrapped your head around even Aaron Rodgers as the person and the player has developed? He's 41 years old. Do you think he's a problem child? Is he a right fit in Pittsburgh? I have so many questions and of course not enough time.
Yeah. Well, Pittsburgh is cycling through the guys, isn't it? Trying to find that player, and Aaron Rodgers, obviously fascinating character and divisive, polarizing Hall of Fame player. It feels like, clearly he's in the sunset of his career, may have one good season left. It obviously didn't work out the way they had hoped in New York. But I'll say, yeah, he plays one more year and is modestly effective. But to play on the other side of 40 and be anything close to the player you were at your peak is a lot to ask.
All three of us need to go knock on his door in Malibu, since we all live fairly close enough, and tell him to hurry to make a decision, because this process is dragging out way too long. Free agency, first 2 waves are over. We're on owners' meetings next week, and the draft is less than a month away. He needs to make a decision.
And I need to live much closer to Malibu.
Hey, we're all
that close to it.
Yep. Colin Coward said he needs to go on another darkness retreat. I mean, we just want answers, Erin. Is it that hard? Just give us the answers. But yeah, it'll be interesting, of course, as my dog is. Milo, sorry. Once he hears somebody, it's game over. But we are full circle as we are just grateful to get you on, Sam. We know how busy you are. You're a legend in the industry. You've been covering the NFL for well over 25 years. And, you've seen the changes that the new regime is and what the old regime is. And I think it's interesting to get your take and your fingers on the pulse with what we're seeing in the NFL. So appreciate the time.
Thanks so much, Erin, and thank you, Tyler. It was fun.
Yes, thanks for coming on.
We'll have to get you on. Yeah, we'll get you on again. Maybe after the draft, if you're free.
Okay, that sounds great.
Maybe we'll find you in Malibu. Who knows?
Knocking on doors.
That's right. Hanging with Erin. All right, that's it for us at Bleav in Rams. I'm Erin Coscarelli for Sam Farmer and Tyler Dragon. We will see you next time. Thanks for listening.